It's Max Anderson with River Flows Adventures. I'm going to take you through a simulation of preparing to go out on the St. Mary's River and join me on a paddle adventure. So we're simulating this inside the gym so that you can get a better idea of the equipment that we would like to take with us when we go on the water. So I have some balance boards here that we're going to use. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to be using a smaller board. This board is actually just over 10 feet long for a child or a shorter person. Typically, I would use a longer board, about 11 foot 6 inches. And that board, as you can see here in the garage, would be quite a bit taller than me. But for today, we're going to use this board. So I will set it on here. What this does is really give us an uneven practice area to work on. And when I do a class, we typically do this on land. We'll do on land training first before we ever go to the water. And we'll talk a little bit about some safety things to keep in mind when we're out on the water. So some of the things to keep in mind, of course, is weather conditions. I'm actually doing this training seminar April 2nd of 2025. Or maybe it's the 3rd, April 3rd of 2025, and it is a complete blizzard outside right now in northern Michigan. Unbelievable. But hopefully spring, summer is coming and we will be out on the water and we can actually do this outside. But for today and for training purposes, we're doing it here in the garage. So like I said, I put the board on uneven, safe, low area for us to practice getting on and off of the board. Typically when we're on the board, we're going to enter into the water, perhaps off of a ground area into the water, off of a dock. Where I teach classes, we go off of the dock where I can actually stand in the water and stabilize the board for you. But again, that comes a little bit later on after we do our dry land training. So one of the first things we're going to look at, of course, is weather conditions, like I mentioned earlier. And windy days, it can be a little chilly. You can dress warmer for that. Or if it's warm, of course, you can dress for that and wear sunscreen and that type of thing. But if the wind is really your enemy, the greatest enemy, and then of course water currents. So when you join me here on the St. Mary's River, I will educate you on the current flow and understand that the water flows downriver. And we will do our paddle sessions a little bit in from where the actual current flows so that we're stabilized. And one of the things that we do use is an anchor. These anchors here just tie to the board and go to the ground. And I will typically anchor the front and the back to keep you stable. But just so you know, this is an anchor, what it looks like, just a tiny little boat anchor, more or less. Also, I will use weights from the gym, maybe like a 10-pound weight, and hook it to a rope to stabilize the front and the back so that you don't have to have worries of floating off. If I'm demonstrating this for more than one person, I make sure that everyone's stable in the water and feels secure on their board. So that's one of the things that we discuss. When we're out on the board for the purposes of just practicing getting on off of the board, we also want to go through some of the safety things besides the weather. We always talk about making sure that you have a leash on. A leash looks like this. Thought I had it ready, but it's right here. So this is a leash that attaches to the board and then attaches to the ankle or the upper part of your calf, your choice for comfort. This leash will be a safety mechanism for you when you're out paddling if you were to fall off, for the board not to get away from you, so you could swim back to it and get on the board. And we'll talk about how to get back on the board in that situation a little bit later on in the practice. But for now, again, this is something that is absolutely a requirement for you to have on the board. And also a PDF, a life jacket. I don't have one to put on at this time to demonstrate, but I will in later videos show you exactly what that means to make sure that you have a fitted personal floating device and that you could wear a waist pack or just over, especially it's warmer here in northern Michigan, it's nice to have the full life jacket on. But that's when we go paddling. But for today, we're just gonna, for this video here, we're just gonna talk about getting off and on the board on dry land. So those are a couple of things. Of course, a paddle is called paddle boarding, right? So you're going to have a board and a paddle. And for the this video here, we're just going to talk about getting on and off the board, and then we'll talk about the paddle a little bit later. So those are just a few simple things for you to enjoy the sport. Is make sure that you have these few things handy, and you'll be ready to enjoy paddle boarding. So let's talk about getting on the board. And again, I remember I put this on 2 balance pods, if you will, just to make it move a little bit like this, just a little bit more uneven, a little bit more challenging. Really nice to practice in the off season with something like this so that you can get acclimated to your board. I also paddle with my Jack Russell Terrier. I have a miniature Jack Russell who rides on the board. And so this is really good for me to do in the garage during the winter months to make sure that she stays acclimated to staying on the board. And she, of course, also wears a protection floating device. She wears a life jacket. So back to getting on and off of the board. As you might know, the center of gravity needs to stay low. If you're standing tall, you're more apt to lose your balance. So when we get on the board, we want to look for the center of the board, and the lowest point, of course, would be on our hands and knees for stability. So I'll demonstrate that now. This handle right here is basically the center of the board, and that's where we carry it. So if I were to pick it up, see, pretty light, it weighs, not very much, so you can just carry it from the handle. So as we put it down, this is going to be our center of the board. As we get on the board, again, if we're getting on the board off of the water we're walking in, we would just walk into the water and then get on our knees. If you're getting off a dock onto the board, you want to, obviously make sure it's secure as you go down and get on it on your knees. If you're taking a class with me, of course, I'm there to help stabilize it. But if you are on your own, you really want to be mindful of where your board is situated before you get on it so that there's nothing around you that you could accidentally fall off and hit your head on and get hurt. Of course, that comes with understanding the mobility of this board, how it moves on the board, or excuse me, on the water. But again, that happens with practice, learning that. So as we get on the board, again, we're going to get down. If we're on the ground doing dry land training, we're going to get on the board on our hands and knees. And you could pretty much paddleboard the entire time on your knees. It's not a problem. You can actually sit like a kayak as well. It's just as safe and as comfortable and as fun. But standing up gives you a better view of all your surroundings, and it's just enjoyable to be able to paddle along the river, standing and enjoying the view. So getting on your knees here on the paddleboard, again, you just want to kind of find that center of gravity for you that is low. Put your knees apart so that you're balanced and you can stabilize. So, just kind of playing with it. Again, on these wobble boards really gives you a feeling of being on the water. So you can kind of come down, make sure you're secure, come up on the knees, however that feels for you. So of course, when we're paddleboarding, there's going to be a paddle. And what I would typically have you do in my class is I would have the board, have the paddle on the board and have it so that the paddle is facing the back, the handle is in the front. So I would set it, on the paddle like this, the paddle on the board like this, and then have you get straddled with your knees over it before we go into standing position. So once you feel secure on your knees on the board, the next step is obviously to try to stand up. We want to make sure that we look around our surroundings, that in fact, if we did fall off, that we have a plan of action on how we're going to get back on the board. For those of us that might be paddling in a rocky river area where there's rocks or debris in the water, it's really important to make sure that you know what's around you. If you're in the ocean or anywhere where there's coral or things like that, again, you need to know your surroundings so that if you fall off, that you know what to expect. If you can't touch the bottom, if you're in deep water, you really want to make sure that you are leashed to the board, which I didn't do in this demonstration, but of course we would practice doing that. In another video, I'll actually show you how to do that. So getting up on the board, what I would have you do is just stabilize here, bring one leg underneath, and typically this is going to be your stronger leg. You want to make sure that you're going to be able to get your body weight up. Okay, so you're going to go here. We can take the paddle out and cross the board, and then we can bring the other knee. And sometimes it might take a minute here just to feel comfortable with your legs on the board, hip width apart. And I always tell people, if you look down, you're gonna fall down. So you wanna keep your eye contact up, not looking down, because you're gonna have a tendency to want to follow where your eyes are going. So maybe the front of the board to get started, and then raise your eye level. So as you're coming up on the board, we're going to take the paddle, and I'll have you actually set it here and use it as a walking pole. If you have a deck that has a foam area, which most of them do, you're not as likely to have it slide from side to side. If it does not have a foam thing, then your deck, you're gonna have to just rise with it in your hand. But let's just say that you have a board like ours that has a non-slip surface. I'm going to just have you use the strength to come up, climbing up the pole, up the paddle, and then of course just stabilizing here on your board. Your legs are about hip width apart at all times for secure stabilization. Knees slightly bent, engaging the core body, engaging the quadriceps, and just everything in your body is just kind of engaged, practicing moving right to left, a little bit of movement. And for the most part, you're just gonna stabilize here, holding the paddle until you feel very confident and secure to take the paddle off of the deck. And when you do feel secure, what we're going to have you do is unlock it and slide it about hands height above your head and lock it. And this is the standard that we would like the paddle to be. We don't want to have it too short because you can't get a full stroke in the water to move forward. I think a lot of people just tend to just forget to do that, and they just start with little mini strokes. But again, comes with practice and understanding and lessons to learn how to actually utilize the paddle in the water to your advantage. So what we'll do is unlock it, rise it to hand widths above the head, lock it, and then it should look about shoulder width apart, like a football goal post, if you will, okay? So when we paddle and we enter the water, we'll be moving the water like so. Another thing, again, that we will learn is that the paddle has a natural bow in it, and we want the bow to pull the water back, okay? So if it's bowed forward and you're paddling it, you're not gonna get as much movement as if it's bowed the way that you want the water to go. So you're going to put it into the water and pull back. And what I encourage people to do is, I say you paid a lot of money for the paddle, get your money's worth, make sure that it's in the water, the paddle is in the water above the actual part of the fin. And then you want to get the whole stroke of the board. And again, that's something else that we will talk about, is how to get the most effective glide in your stroke. So that's what to do. So just getting up and down off the board, of course, takes a lot of courage. If you're feeling insecure about that, I really encourage you to take lessons and understand how important it is to be secure on your board. So thank you for watching. This was just kind of step one, introducing you to paddleboarding here in Northern Michigan with River Flows Adventures and Max Anderson.